Hello everyone and welcome back. It is that time of the year again to do our yearly update for the top 5 free player classes, or this time around it's going to be the top 6. The list just keeps on getting bigger and then trying to squeeze them all in becomes a little bit of a nightmare. Now for 1 year only we have got this disclaimer: Legion Revenant, as you're all well aware, is not a free class because you have to be part of the Legion to get it. However, it is going to make a cameo appearance this year purely due to the amount of free ACs that were given out. Traditionally we do start with Bloodlust Scarlet Sorceress, however we're going to be doing things a bit different this year as I'm intending to cover the lower tier classes in a separate top list, so we'll come on to that at some point in the future. Now it is time to begin with number 6. So reappearing this year it is going to be a Dragon of Time. Now Dragon of Time is one of those farming classes that has found itself yet another purpose in game with the addition of Ultra Nulgath. However, this did get buffed about a year or so ago, literally not too long after or just before I made the last video, so it kind of has to reappear. It really is a great farming option, mainly due to the fact it hits up to 4 hostile enemies on the majority of its attacks. Alternatively, you could go for something like Archfiend, where it only hits 2 enemies but does a lot of damage output. Dragon of Time is also a great soloing class. It has great endurance due to how high you're able to get the health in this class, and also you do an awful lot of damage over time. Funny enough, the class is called DOT. I wonder if that was all part of their thinking when they put it together. You're also able to get some pretty high DPS off skill 5. As you can see, I'm getting about 10k here in the background. It may not be the fastest farmer or solar in game, but when you have both those options hybrid together with some great endurance, it really does make it a good option. Okay, number 5, down a few places due to no fault of its own, is Arch Paladin and the other support classes that we'll be showing in this video. Yet again, Arch Paladin is a multi-purpose class. The majority of us will know it nowadays for its vast uses in ultra battles, which has made it incredibly useful, but more than that, it is a great support class, a super soloer, and not to mention you can also go farming with it. It does have a couple of skills that hit 3 different targets, so it is worth bearing in mind if you do have it just lurking in your bank for some crazy reason. It also could have been slightly higher up this list, to be honest. It's one of those I was umming and ahhing over, but I thought best we put all the supports together, which moves us on to Lord of Order, also sharing that number 5 spot. Not the strongest class in the world, but certainly something that is needed in almost every challenge fight composition nowadays. You won't really be using Lord of Order for anything else. I don't think I ever put this class on other than when I'm doing ultra battles, but it has got that essential purpose in game, so it is definitely worthy in this list. I may be biased, but for me the Age of Stone will never be over. Yet another support class, however this one does have some other purposes in game. It's not too bad at soloing. If you're slightly lower level and you do have Stonecrusher, you can go through and use this as a decent solo in game. It's going to keep you alive. It does a reasonable amount of damage, so any boss under 100k health you'll be able to get through. One of the main supporting elements of the Stonecrusher class, along with its little heal it has, is of course being able to sustain mana for your team. So if you're running out of mana and you haven't got a Stonecrusher, that's probably the reason why, although Mana Vamp is now available. At number 4, and essentially almost in the same place it was last year, is going to be Yami no Ronin. So for those of you who last year doubted you can get this class for free, you can go and do the Legion sword training. Yes, it is an absolute one heck of a big grinding quest. Yami is known as probably the ultimate dodge class. That's the main reason most of us use it. You probably whip it out quite a lot at Warlord Icewing when you're going through doing your daily quests, so you'll just literally dodge, dodge, dodge and do fairly decent damage whilst you're attacking. It's also pretty formidable to come up against in PvP unless you're using an anti-dodge class. It is just one of those classes that if you don't yet have it, it is definitely worth going along grabbing. Alternatively, if you want another dodger, to my memory, Hawk Evader should probably do the trick, which again should be a free player option from the Hawk rep shop. At number 3, we have got Chaos Avenger. This one gave me the biggest headache around because recently, yet again, it received a buff, and now suddenly it is pretty much on par with Void Highlord. There's not very much that splits the two classes. Once you get up to speed and kitted out with this class, generally you're going to be somewhere in the ballpark of anywhere between 5 to 15k on most of your attacks. There's 2 main perks to this class really. You have a focus, i.e. a taunt on your skill 4, which is incredibly useful. Granted, it doesn't last as long as Scrolls of Enrage, but it's still really handy to have there. It's also probably the biggest tank class I think I've ever used. It just is one enormous sponge. If there's a monster in game you want to solo, just stick this class on and sure enough you'll probably beat it. The thing that's always held me back from placing Cav higher on these lists is just the fact of how the skills work, and they just feel so sluggish to go for and use, but that's just probably a bit of a me thing. At number 2 we have Archmage. Now Archmage is super powerful. This class is absolutely ridiculous, and to be quite honest, I had it at number number 1 for quite a while in this list. However, we do have to remember that to use this class to its full potential, you need to put some kind of crazy build on it using forge enhancements, and of course you can pot it up as well. We will not be going into the ins and outs of that in this video, but we do have Acheron ready to go once we get a couple more of the forge bits to make this into some kind of absolute super weapon. There are certain ultras in the game you are also able to solo with Archmage. I know there's other classes you can do that with as well, but when you put the damage over time, your normal DPS you're outputting with this, it really is stupidly high. Obviously, we are running the necrotic swords, but we are getting around 9,000 damage a second. That's without any forge enhancements or anything added on. When you're going through using this class, there's 2 different play methods you're able to go through depending on how you're using skill 5 to switch between. I find that as soon as my health starts getting low, that's generally when I'll hit a 5, so we can start going into a bit more defensive mode with the class, and then we can just go all out attack for a little bit while the health gets absolutely shredded. In my opinion, once you get your head around Archmage, it is actually a really fun class to use, and it is quite fun to experiment with all the different builds that you're able to put on. As far as an out and out powerful farmer goes, Archmage is the best one you can get at the minute. However, it is quite complicated to use, so when it's far easier to survive with things like Legion Revenant and Necrotic Chrono, it just makes it even harder to pick between them. Now, you probably did not expect this, however, Void High Lord is still remaining at the top of this list. Like a couple of the farms in game, ever since the ultras got added, it has been considerably easier and quicker to go about farming. The Norgath regions are still a little bit annoying, however, once you get past that part of the farm, you're pretty much on the home straight. This is a great PvP class, not that many people really do that. Its main purpose in life is of course soloing. Having said that, there are a couple ultra battles where you're able to actually just run it with Scrolls of Enrage. However, for Void High Lord, that's more of just a side hustle. Like we say, the main thing you're going to be doing is probably just sticking this class on all the time, because when you're going through doing generic quest lines, weekend updates and boss fights, as it can one-tap lower HP mobs, it is quite good for farming as well. This is just a personal thing. I find when I'm using Void High Lord, I'm still getting far more DPS out of it than Chaos Avenger. Although they are quite close nowadays, it is still what I would prefer to use. And then also sharing the top spot in its special cameo is the not quite fully free Legion Revenant. It's a super farmer class, a really great support one, and it's one of those that if you want to defeat some boss monsters and you're too lazy to put on an actual solo class, then this will do the job for you regardless. Now what we're going to do is quickly load up the class movements just so you can see the ones that have been kicked off this year, and of course the gainers and losers. Just to quickly say, on putting Legion Revenant and Void High Lord joint top, that's what I do pretty much every time. In fact, when you're rating classes like this, it is just generally really hard to do because so many fall into different categories that it just means how do you compare a soloing class to a farming class? You just don't, because it's 2 totally different categories, and it is due to that we will be doing the top 5 solo support farming classes, etc. If you do happen to be new around here, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Please do leave the video a like, and I'll see you all again for another one incredibly soon.